I lied about my baby's father, and now he knows. I'm pregnant, and he wants answers. Should I tell him the truth or stick to my plan of raising the baby alone? I'm 27F, grew up in the South, but went to college in New York. There, I met and dated Ryan, 27M, during our last 2 years of undergrad. After graduation, I stayed in New York to pursue my master's degree while Ryan started working. We were happy together, and even planned to get married after I finished school. But after I graduated, Ryan got cold feet about marriage and eventually becoming a father. His own dad walked out on him when he was a kid, so he had abandonment issues. He broke up with me. Heartbroken doesn't even begin to describe how I felt. I had a great job in New York, so I stayed, hoping Ryan would come to his senses and we'd get back together. We never did. He met Lily, 26F, and started dating her about 6 months after we split. I started planning to move back to my home state once I realized it was truly over. Then he and Lily broke up at the start of this year. Ryan and I ended up sleeping together a few times while they were apart. It was a messy breakup, no cheating involved. About a week after the last time we were together, he told me he and Lily were getting back together. He said he couldn't stay friends with me because he still had feelings for me, and he needed to let them fade to be fair to Lily. His final words to me were, "Don't call me unless you're literally dying and just want to say goodbye." I left New York 3 weeks later. 2 weeks after I got home, I found out I was pregnant. It's Ryan's. I wasn't going to be that girl who uses a pregnancy to win a man back, so I deleted all my social media accounts and made new ones without my name attached. The only people I added were trusted friends who either had no connection to Ryan or were loyal to me and wouldn't tell him about my new accounts. Early in my pregnancy, I made the mistake of checking Ryan and Lily's profiles. I saw they referred to each other as forever and my person, and Ryan even posted a picture captioned, "Going to marry this girl." It shattered me all over again. I blocked them both and decided to move on with my life. I'm now 7 months pregnant. Since moving back, I've bought my own house in my home state and have been busy setting up a nursery for my baby. I already love this little one so much, and I'm 100% confident I can raise and provide for them on my own with a little help from my family. One of my best friends back in New York was having an engagement party. I won't be able to attend the wedding because I'll have a newborn by then, so I decided to fly out to see my friends and congratulate the couple before my life becomes all about the baby. I got into town on Wednesday and had an amazing time catching up with everyone. Even though it's only been about 7 months since I last saw them, they were all respectful of my request not to take pictures of me below the chest. They posted some photos of me online, but from the angles, it just looks like I've gained a little weight in my face, nothing that would give away my pregnancy. A couple of days before my flight back home, the friend I was staying with suggested we go to the store to pick up a scrapbook for our engaged friend. As we were leaving, I saw Ryan's cousin Megan, 23F, walk in. I'd talked to her a few times at Ryan's family gatherings over the years, but we never really got along. She was always too nosy for my liking, so of course, she was the last person I wanted to run into. The first thing she did was loudly announce that I was pregnant, as if everyone in the store couldn't already tell. Then she started grilling me, asking if Ryan knew. I said no and that he didn't need to know because it wasn't his. That was a lie, obviously, but I didn't want to open a can of worms. Megan then said, "With how big your belly is, you're pretty far along. How'd you move on so fast?" I told her Ryan, and I broke up a long time ago. She responded, "Everyone knows you two were still hooking up at the beginning of this year." I didn't know that was common knowledge. I figured Ryan would have kept that to himself. Anyway, I lied and told her I already had a new boyfriend and that I was 6 months pregnant. She seemed to buy it and awkwardly congratulated me. My friend and I paid for our stuff and left right after. I prayed that would be the end of it, but Megan is a gossip, so of course she ran her mouth. Just a few hours later, a bunch of my friends messaged me saying Ryan was blowing up their inboxes, trying to reach me. None of them gave him my new number or social media, so he has no way of contacting me directly. My flight back home isn't for another 2 days, and I'm freaking out. Some of my friends are saying I should just tell him the truth now that he knows I'm pregnant. I still think I can get away with pretending it's someone else's, and that I'm not far enough along for it to be his. Honestly, I just want to ignore him and go home. But I'm having doubts about whether that's the right choice, and there's no consensus on what to do, so I'm turning to internet strangers. TLDR, I got pregnant by my ex, moved away, and planned to raise the baby alone. His cousin saw me and told him I'm pregnant. Now he's trying to reach me, and I just want to go home and ignore him. Should I tell him the truth or stick to my plan? Update 1. Hi everyone, so the consensus on my post was to tell Ryan about the baby being his. Even from the first few comments, that seemed clear. We did end up meeting up. It wasn't particularly dramatic, but if anyone's curious, here's what happened. He got a hold of the friend I was staying with on Instagram. I wanted to talk to him on the phone, but he insisted we meet in person ASAP. Looking back, I should have waited until the next day, but I just wanted to get it over with. And it seemed like he did too. Honestly, I thought he was going to say he wanted nothing to do with the baby because I couldn't think of any other reason he'd want to meet in person right then. It was almost 10 p.m., so my friend and I went to his parents' house where he was waiting. His parents always treated me like family, so I felt comfortable being there, even though we probably should have met somewhere neutral. When we arrived, Ryan's mom answered the door. She hugged me, and I could tell she wanted to touch my stomach, but she held back and didn't even ask, thankfully. I've always liked her. We made awkward small talk as she led me to the living room. It was clear they'd just had a party because the place was still messy, with cups and confetti everywhere. On the couch were Ryan and Lily holding hands. I was surprised that I didn't feel anything for him at first. His stepdad offered me a seat, but I chose to stand since I didn't plan on staying long. Ryan started by saying, "You might have fooled Megan, but I know there's no way you met someone new and got pregnant that fast. Why didn't you tell me?" I told him the truth. The last time we spoke, he told me not to contact him unless I was literally dying, and I'm not dying. He said he was trying to be respectful to Lily and that, obviously, this would have been an exception. Lily chimed in to say I ruined her proposal. I found out later, third hand, but knowing Megan, I believe it, that the party at his parents' house was for him to propose to Lily in front of their friends and family. Megan waited until after the proposal, and during the speeches, she told Ryan she was glad he got away from me and wasn't going to be stuck raising my baby. Then, all hell broke loose at the party. I had no idea that happened at the time, or I wouldn't have gone to see him. Hearing that he proposed hurt. He broke up with me because he was scared of marriage and kids, but he dated Lily for less time than we were together, and she got a ring. I put on a brave face, or at least I tried to, and acted like it didn't bother me, but it absolutely did. His mom told Lily it wasn't my fault, and that now wasn't the time for that. Then Ryan said, "Obviously you can't move now." I told him I already did, and was only in New York for the weekend. He countered, saying I had to move back. I said no, I'm not doing that. He said, "Well, I can't just leave." At that point, I got frustrated and told him I left months ago. My job is in my home state. I bought a house. All my doctor's appointments are there. I established residency there a long time ago. New York isn't my home anymore, and hasn't been for over half a year. He got frustrated and got up, asking if he's just supposed to send a paycheck once a month and saying, this wasn't how it was supposed to happen. I don't know what he meant by that last part since he'd just found out I was pregnant a few hours before, but I assumed he was talking about his life plans. I forced myself to calm down and told him if he was worried about this messing up his future. He had nothing to worry about. I don't want or need anything from him. I've planned everything out, finances, childcare when I return to work, even setting up my baby's college fund. It's all taken care of. He didn't say much. I didn't know if he was thinking or just relieved I had it all handled. I told him he could still marry Lily and have his own family someday. I promised I wouldn't bother or blame him for anything. My baby will be loved and cared for. Ryan got teary-eyed and said, "You know how I feel about this." He was referring to when he broke up with me, saying he didn't want to be a dad because he didn't think he'd be good at it. He also has abandonment issues from his dad walking out on him and his family when he was 6. I told Ryan he's not his dad, he's better than him and always will be. His mom started crying, probably from seeing how his dad's abandonment still affects him. I promised Ryan I wouldn't let my baby think he was a deadbeat. I'd be honest that we just weren't meant to be together and lived far apart. He said he can't just not be in his kid's life, and that I don't understand what it could do to them. He asked if we could figure something out together. I asked what he realistically expected because I'm not moving back to New York, and I highly doubt he and Lily want to pack up and move away from their families and friends. I said I'm not sending my kid on a plane every few months either. That's too much. Ryan didn't respond, so I told him maybe that could be an option when the baby's older and more independent, but not now. His eyes lit up and he asked, "It's a boy." I'd been careful not to reveal the gender, but I slipped up and nodded. He nervously asked if he could feel the baby. Before I could answer, Lily let out a loud wail and stormed off to the kitchen. Ryan apologized and went to comfort her. His mom excused herself, still crying, and her husband followed. That left me and my friend awkwardly standing in the living room, listening to his mom sniffling in the hallway and Lily sobbing in the kitchen. It was incredibly uncomfortable, and I know some will hate me for this, but I just felt overwhelmed. Maybe it makes me pathetic, but standing in the room where a party was just held to celebrate Ryan proposing to another woman hurt so much. So I left. I told my friend, "Let's get out of here," and we quietly walked out. We stayed in a hotel, and I managed to get an earlier flight home on Sunday. Now I'm back home, focusing on the nursery. I told my friends I talked to Ryan and apologized if he kept trying to reach them. I advised them to block him if it's too much. I know this isn't the end of things. I plan on reaching out to him again eventually. Even though he broke my heart, I still care about him, and I won't deny him a relationship with his kid if that's what he really wants. I have no idea how it's going to work, and I'm only allowed to update once, so I apologize that I won't be able to share how it all turns out. Thank you for the advice on my last post. Even though I was downvoted, it was nice to get unbiased opinions. Update 2. First, I've seen a lot of comments saying Ryan proposed to Lily within a few months of dating. That's not true. Aside from the 1-month breakup where Ryan and I conceived the baby, they were together for about a year and a half before the engagement, assuming they had no more breakups after. I don't know their full history, nor do I care to. Second, I feel like people were being a bit harsh on Ryan. He's not abusive or controlling. In the 4 years we dated, he never even raised his voice at me. He was a bit overbearing by demanding I stay in New York because that's where he is, but he'd just found out about the baby and was panicking that I'd disappear and he wouldn't be able to contact me. Which, to be fair, is exactly what I did, so I get it. I had a million thoughts running through my head when I found out too. Third, he wasn't juggling Lily and me at the same time. She broke up with him, they both thought it was for good, and he and I started sleeping together again. It wasn't like we were in some lovey-dovey honeymoon phase. It was a weird, confusing time. We weren't talking about getting back together. I already had a start date for my new job back home, and my move was scheduled. He didn't know any of that. I was still in love with him, of course, and I hoped he'd tell me he wanted to get back together, but he didn't. Finding out he was getting back with Lily hurt, but I don't feel used for sex. I don't think either of us knew what we were doing by sleeping together again. Ryan's a simple guy overall. He's not some supervillain playing with women's emotions. I'm not making excuses for him, but I know who he is as a person. Anyone who read my posts knows him as just a collection of bad or questionable choices. If you summarize anyone by just the bad they've done, of course they'd come off as unlikable. Ryan's not evil or manipulative. He's just got some stuff he should have worked through years ago. I never thought his issues were that big until we broke up. Plus, I'm positive Lily knew we slept together while they were broken up. There's no way that was a shock to her. He would have told her himself, and even if he hadn't, if Megan knew, everyone else knew shortly after, guaranteed. Lastly, I appreciate everyone concerned about custody issues. I was also amused by the people who thought I'd be forced to put my baby on a plane by court order. I'm not sure why so many people on Reddit are used to dysfunctional relationships where judges and custody battles are involved, but that's not us. Ryan and I were together and very much in love for years. It might be hard to picture that when you've only read about the messy end of our relationship, but everything before the breakup was ideal, which is why it hurts so much when he ended it. Things are weird now, but we don't hate each other. Our default isn't, let's take this to court. That would be the last resort. I'm sure we'll work it out between ourselves long before it gets there. So, on to the actual update. I planned on contacting Ryan after a couple of weeks to gather my thoughts and figure out what I wanted to say. Instead, he called me about a week after I got home. He left a voicemail asking me to call him so we could talk. I was furious because there's no way he should have been able to find my number unless someone gave it to him. I texted him, asking how he got it. He said it wasn't important and that he wanted to talk. I told him it was important to me, and I wouldn't talk until he told me who gave him my number. Finally, he told me and sent a screenshot of the conversation as proof. It was the second least likely friend I'd expect to break my trust. That's a whole other story. We talked over FaceTime, and he said he absolutely wants to be in our son's life. He doesn't know how it's going to work long term, and neither do I. There was no threat of lawyers or his mom shouting about grandparents' rights like people were expecting. We're adults and we'll figure it out. The situation isn't any easier logistically, but emotions from that night have died down, and we have clearer heads to move forward. He did, however, have the audacity to say he hates that I didn't tell him sooner, and that I wasn't planning to tell him at all until Megan found out, because he thought we meant more to each other than that. I told him I thought we did until he told me not to contact him unless I was dying. That shut him up quickly because he knows now that was an extreme and unnecessary thing to say, even if he wanted to cut contact. He apologized, and I apologized for not telling him about the baby myself. That's all we can do. We're about to co-parent a child together, so we don't get the luxury of holding grudges over past mistakes. He also told me he and Lily are no longer together. He claims it was mutual, but that sounds too easy. How do you go from newly engaged to broken up in 18 hours with it being a clean process? I'm guessing he's sparing me the ugly details. I do feel bad for Lily. Other than blaming me for her ruined engagement party, she didn't do anything wrong. Her proposal should have been one of the best nights of her life, and it was ruined. I wouldn't want that for any woman. And because I know what everyone's going to say, no, I'm not seeing this as an opportunity to get back together with Ryan. Honestly, my focus is on my son right now. I'm not thinking about jumping into a relationship with anyone, much less the man who broke my heart once already. I think Ryan and I need to figure out how we're going to co-parent first and foremost. And TBH, I want a man who loves me and chooses me for who I am, not because I happen to have given birth to his child. Plus, I don't know if I could ever get over him proposing to Lily over me. Even if they broke off their engagement, I still want to know why she got a ring and I didn't. I'm going to ask eventually, but I don't think any answer will ever make it okay to me. A lot of people said it wasn't that he didn't want marriage, he just didn't want it with me. I find that hard to believe because, as I said above, we really had an ideal relationship. Our breakup wasn't a buildup of issues, it was as simple as, you want marriage and kids, I don't. Which I think most would agree is the natural end of a relationship. If it really is as simple as I just wasn't the one, then I want him to look me in the eyes and tell me that himself. Ryan's a terrible liar, even when he's lying for a good reason, like a surprise. He fidgets and can't maintain eye contact when he's lying, so if he looks me in the eyes and tells me his reason for choosing to marry her and not me, I'll know if he's being honest. Ryan also told me his mom wanted to send me stuff for the baby, so he asked for my address. I declined. I'm positive there are no bad intentions, and she's just excited and wants to help. This will be her first grandchild. But I still felt uncomfortable giving them my home address. He's been texting me every day and calls me every night to say goodnight. Sometimes he wants to talk to the baby. It's a bit confusing for me because he broke up with me because he didn't want a kid, but now he wants to be involved to the point where he's going out of his way to contact me and ask if I need anything. It's strange, and I don't really understand how his brain works, but like I said in my last post, I won't deny him a relationship with his kid if he wants one. Ryan wants to visit me in person to talk properly, but I told him I'm not sure if that's necessary right now. He asked to come last weekend, and I said no. Then he asked again about possibly coming this weekend, but I told him I can't because I'm having my baby shower on Saturday. He wants to come. I'm not sure if that's a great idea. I'm not worried he'd say or do anything bad. We're getting along over text and video calls, but part of me feels like it's sort of, I don't know, playing house almost. I guess it wouldn't be a big deal if I made it clear he'd be here as a friend and the father of the baby, but not as anything more. My parents don't think it's a good idea, but I know that's just because they don't like Ryan ever since he broke up with me. My sister, who's more level-headed, says it could be a show of good faith that I'm serious about having a healthy co-parenting relationship, and it'll probably be easier to build that foundation now before the baby comes. My brothers don't care either way, but they say they're ready to beat Ryan up if he does or says anything stupid. He won't, but I love my brothers for always looking out for me. I'm not sure what I'm going to decide, but I know Ryan needs an answer soon so he can book a flight and a hotel if I say yes. I'm open to suggestions. Update 3. Hi everyone, I've been asked to give an update on the baby shower and whether I let Ryan attend. This post is long, so I'll include a TLDR at the bottom. I did end up allowing Ryan to come to my baby shower. When he called me the Monday night before my Saturday baby shower, I brought it up. I told him he could come if he agreed to 3 rules. 1. We are not together. Don't touch me, hug me, or put your hands on my stomach unless I say it's okay. 2. We need to have a serious talk, but it only happens after the baby shower. I don't care if there's an awkward vibe. We ignore it until after. 3. He stays in a hotel. I wasn't housing anyone. I needed my home to be my own space to return to if things got overwhelming. Unsurprisingly, he was fine with all of that and was just happy he could come. I also told him he could invite his mom if she wanted to attend. He was relieved because she'd mentioned wanting to come with him. Everything was settled until the next day when he called to ask if his brother and sister could come too. His stepdad had a prior commitment and couldn't make it. I shouldn't have been surprised. Ryan's family is really close-knit. They show up for each other for everything. I've never had issues with anyone in his family. I always got along with his parents and siblings, especially his sister. I said it was fine as long as they understood I was the guest of honor at my baby's shower, not a hostess, so I wouldn't be checking in with them the whole time. His sister also messaged me privately to ask if I was really okay with them all coming, and that she and their younger brother could stay home if I didn't want them there. It was unnecessary since I'd already said yes, but I appreciated her asking. Their flight got in on Friday afternoon. My parents decided to host a dinner for Ryan's family. They don't like Ryan anymore, but they felt that since he and I are now tied together for the next 18 years minimum, our families should at least be acquainted. When they got to my parents' house, the greetings were as awkward as expected. Ryan leaned down to my stomach and said hi to the baby. The baby kicked, and when I told Ryan, he got excited, so I offered to let him feel. I figured he should have that moment. His mom was ecstatic, saying the baby already knows his daddy's voice. She was so happy that I didn't have the heart to tell her the baby had been kicking for the past half hour before they arrived. Dinner was fine. We mostly talked about the baby shower, but we also went around the table, and everyone suggested names. I have to admit, I'm a bit bummed about the naming. I was happy I had sole decision power when it was just me, but now I have to get Ryan's approval too, which sucks. Some of the names he suggested were awful, TBH. The day of the baby shower was long, but it went perfectly. Luckily, Megan was over 2,000 miles away, so she couldn't ruin the event. It was relatively big since my family always does co-ed baby showers. We even had some games specifically for the men in attendance. I felt a little bad about Ryan just being a guest, so we tried to include him last minute by letting him give the guys the rules for the bottle-chugging game. It was tea, not beer, and added a last-minute best dad joke competition that he got to judge. We also took some pictures together. As I said in my last post, I didn't want to play house with him, but honestly, I was having such a great time that I didn't even mind when both sides of the family suggested pictures. More importantly, he asked for my consent before putting his arm around me and touching my stomach for the photos, which was a relief that he respected the boundaries I set. After the baby shower ended, I invited Ryan's family to my house. I mentioned not wanting to give my address to him in my last post. Some people misunderstood that as me trying to stay hidden forever. Obviously, he was going to know my address once the baby came. I think what those people failed to realize is that it was all happening so fast. Ryan got my number one day, and the next day, he was asking for my address on his mom's behalf to send baby stuff. It was a lot and far too soon, but since everything was going great, I didn't mind inviting them to see my house. His mom cried when she saw the nursery. Then, I started crying with her because I'm a hormonal mess some days. The nursery is basically finished. I just bought a different shade of blue paint because I didn't like the one I initially chose after looking at it for a couple of weeks. I was planning on repainting it the next week, but Ryan and his brother offered to do it while they were there. I said no, obviously, because they were guests. My dad chimed in to say to let Ryan do it because it's about time he stepped up to help. Obviously, my dad knows Ryan just found out about the baby recently, and I reminded him of that, but my parents were the ones who comforted me every time I cried when I first moved back home and again when I found out I was pregnant. It's going to take a while for them to warm up to Ryan again. So Ryan and his brother painted the first coat with my dad while I talked to Ryan's sister outside. I asked her about Lily, but she wouldn't tell me what happened. She said that was a conversation between me and Ryan. She did tell me that her whole family tried to talk Ryan out of proposing because it was too fast, but he insisted, so they supported him. The only other thing she said was that Megan has been banned from their family's events for the foreseeable future, and their families aren't on good terms since Megan's parents don't think what she did was a big deal. After the guys finished painting, everyone except my sister and Ryan left. Ryan and I decided to talk that night. My sister was in the living room in case it didn't go well, and I needed emotional support after Ryan left. He and I talked in my bedroom. My feet were killing me, and I needed to lie down, so I did that, and Ryan sat on the other end of the bed. Neither of us knew how to start, so I just asked him point blank why he changed his mind about kids. I reminded him that he broke up with me because he didn't want marriage or kids. He said it's true that he didn't want kids and that he's still afraid he'll screw it up somehow, but that the baby already exists, and so he already loves him and wants to be present for him. I then asked about Lily. I wanted to know why he proposed to her and not me. It's not relevant now, but I'm still human, and I wanted to know what was different about her. He told me that he was never scared of marriage. He meant it when we discussed plans about marriage after I was done with school. He wanted to be married to me. It was just the kids' part that he couldn't do. He says that he just added marriage into his reasoning for our breakup because he felt like it would be easier for me to accept. In his head, I might have been able to overlook the kids thing, at least for a few years, but he knew if he said he didn't want marriage either, then I wouldn't stay. I don't know why he didn't just talk to me about it instead. He broke my heart because he thought he was setting me free. As for why he proposed to Lily, she was on the same page as him regarding children. She didn't want them. He said he talked to her about getting a vasectomy, and she was on board with his decision. He admitted that they moved too fast. She was pressuring him to propose to her, and she wanted the big party, so the proposal wasn't a surprise event. Everyone knew what it was going to be, including Lily, as she practically planned the thing herself. All of his family tried to talk him out of it and wait a bit longer, but he was afraid that he would lose another woman and didn't want to make the same mistake again. His words, not mine. I asked why they broke up because I didn't believe him that it was a clean, mutual decision. He said it was mutual but a bit messy. Apparently, he and Lily talked that next day after everything went down. She told him that I ran away and to just let me go. She said she was willing to reconsider kids if he realized that he changed his mind, but that she didn't want to be a stepmom to my child. She basically gave him an ultimatum. He could choose either her or the baby, but not both. He asked her for the ring back right then and there. Apparently, she threw it at him along with a few other heavier objects. He says they're fully done. He tried to do the sweet talk thing, telling me that he's glad it was me and not her that got pregnant. He says I saved him from making a huge mistake in marrying her. He regrets everything and wishes that he could redo the last 2 years and never break up with me. Then he asked if I could ever see us getting back together. I got frustrated at that point and told him that he can't just keep jumping back and forth between us. He tried to defend himself, and while I agree that I don't think he does it with ill intent, it is what he's doing. I told him that he keeps letting his fear make hasty decisions for him, and he needs to work on that with a therapist. I'm about to raise a baby. I don't need to be raising a man too. He did agree to go to therapy to work on his issues. Whether he actually does it or not, I don't know. I did make it clear that he needs to go into it understanding that it's for his and our son's benefit, and not just to win me back, because that's not my focus at all right now. That was pretty much it for our talk. At some point, he ended up laying down beside me, so we were facing each other. There was no touching. We just talked while laying beside each other. I got sleepy, and he left in an Uber back to his hotel. They were supposed to leave on Sunday, but their flight back home was delayed by a day due to the weather in New York. So the next morning, they all came over, and Ryan and his brother finished the second coat of paint on the nursery. It came out perfectly. I'm really glad I went with the second color choice I made. The guys' lunch as a thank you for their work, even though they were both happy to do it for their son and nephew. Ryan told me that he's planning on moving to my home state within the next month because he wants to be here for the baby's birth. His job does offer remote work, so he could do it without having to find a new job. As of now, he says it would be temporary, but admitted that he doesn't know if he'll be able to leave once the baby is here. We'll see what happens. They left the next day while I was at work. Ryan stopped by my work to say goodbye in person. My coworkers all melted when they saw him say bye to the baby and promise him that he'd be back soon. They all think I should give him another chance for the baby's sake. Although I suspect that most of them are also easily swayed by the fact that Ryan is 6 feet 2 inches and conventionally attractive, which they were constantly bringing up at my baby shower and when he came to say bye. Ryan and his family made it back home safe. I haven't heard much else about his plans to move here, but I imagine that will take a while anyway. TLDR, Ryan and his family came to my baby shower. Everything went fine. I got the answers I wanted about why he proposed to Lily and why he changed his mind about being a dad. He's agreed to get therapy for his issues. We're moving forward with our co-parenting plan, and he's likely going to be moving here at least temporarily when the baby is born. Comments. Just as an FYI, you still technically have sole naming power if you don't want to exercise that right to keep the peace. Be nice, that's up to you, but you don't have to. Honestly, it sounds like Ryan will go along with any name you like at this point, just to keep you happy. I'm glad things are working out for you. Ryan's family sounds amazing. I see what you're saying, but I believe in choosing my battles. If my options are to find a name we're both happy with or risk bottled resentment from Ryan over me making a unilateral decision. Because you're right, he would agree to me picking what I want just to keep the peace. I'm going with the first option. There are much more important things to hold my ground on regarding my child's future. I've seen people commenting on the surname too. Where I live, the kid almost always takes the dad's last name, with few exceptions. Even my parents are expecting the baby to have Ryan's surname now that he's involved. While I wouldn't give any woman grief for wanting to pass her name on, it's not important to me. I know he's mine, and that's all I need. Also, I've got 3 brothers, so the odds are extremely likely that our family name will be passed on through them anyway. I'm so happy for you. You indeed saved Ryan from marrying Lily, who seemed to be overbearing and domineering. I hope you and Ryan will co-parent peacefully. If you decide to give him a second chance, make him grovel. I bet his family are happy that Lily is gone. She sounds like a high-maintenance woman, planning her own big engagement party after pressuring the guy to propose. Wow. Nobody said it directly, but I was definitely getting vibes that his family didn't like her very much. I don't know her personally, but she sounds a bit immature. Throwing things at someone during a breakup is just not okay. So Lily manipulated everything, then? He was going to get married to the wrong person and regret it years later. I don't know if she manipulated him, but she definitely pressured him. He said that she told him she didn't want to waste her 20s on him if he wasn't serious about getting married eventually. He didn't tell me this, but I'm guessing maybe he told her about the reason for our breakup, and she didn't want the same thing to happen to her, so she pressured him into proposing. Again, that's just a guess, though. Oh, I have my own opinion, but girl, we're doing all very well, and everything was perfect. He gave you a good explanation, and you gave him great insight. I love what you said about how his fear was taking decisions and advice. I hope all of you find your way. Keep us informed. Yeah, his answer for every decision he made was, because I was scared, which is just not a good way to go about anything. That's something he definitely needs to work on. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification